ready.
Who are we having today?
Oh, so Michael, I've known Michael for a while through the Berkeley group, which I sort of snuck in because I knew another guy named Ray, and
You just throw me a bunch of names, but it makes no sense to me.
We'll try to get Ray too, but he's very busy.
Okay.
So Ray and I, we both went to UC San Diego, and he sort of snuck me into the Berkeley group, and then there's a bunch of cool guys there, including Hanley.
Okay, we need Hanley.
And so we're going to talk to Hanley too. And and so Mike, I see we bump into each other on the conventions. And
Mike is just everywhere.
Michael, actually, you bumped into him. We'll save that story. You should talk to Mike around that story.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Michael is basically everywhere. I don't know where he gets all the energy. Very interesting guy, talking about or knows about IP and law.
But what does IP and law has to do with AI?
Let me tell you how I actually.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So I'm in this startup group. I talk about, hey, how should I handle this idea? Should I try to patent it, or should I try to protect it somehow? And then Mike was very gracious enough to just spend like an hour with me on the phone, going through sort of various ways to protect the idea. And for me, the net of it was, hey, there's something called trade secrets, which maybe Michael can go into. And I like that just because it was very practical advice. I didn't actually need to pay a lawyer. I just need to know of this concept that existed in the world called a trade secret, which might end up being maybe more robust than actually trying to patent something, which might not work out. And so I think we want to do stuff with Michael too, right? Because of information, your
we want to do something,
information retrieval and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of interesting things to talk about, and I'll let you guys explore how the intersection between IP and AI. But it's AI to me is great because it can process large amounts of information. It can sort of one of the most common use cases is summarization.
So we're going to talk about AI and IP and more.
That's right, and I'll be sitting right across from you guys.
Yes,
I'll be in the peanut gallery. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's it.
You'll be shouting out. You'll be sort of sitting through this
That's
whole
right.
thing.
I'll be eating my
And
tart.
if you get too annoying, I'm going to kick you out of the room.
Yeah, I won't remind you about the time this time. I'll remember. Okay.
Okay.
All
right. Thank you.
Okay, it's good.
All right.
Hello.
Hi, Michael Lin.
Hello, Tanya.
The most recent time I saw you was at the Jean-Claude Van Damme
Yes.
painting vernissage.
Yes, where you were interviewing him for RTHK.
Yeah.
And
So you're everywhere.
we bump into each other in some interesting places. But yeah, I'm busy doing a bunch of random stuff. So.
But joking aside, I think for anyone that have done any reading about AI, for some reason, sooner or later, you're going to run into the other two words, IP. What is going on? Why is AI and IP? It's almost like IP is the dark secret of AI.
It sometimes feels like it. Sometimes feels like it. I mean, IP stands for intellectual property, and there's a few buckets that people usually put it into: patents, trademarks, copyrights, trade secrets, designs as well. And almost all of them play into AI in some way or another.
Can we have a quick summary of your background as well?
Sure. I'm a patent attorney for 30 years, born and raised in the States, but I've been in Asia for 30 years, my entire professional career. Japan 10 years, Beijing 4 years, and then Hong Kong 15 years. So actually I'm a Hong Konger now. I've lived in Hong Kong longer than I've lived anywhere else in the world, so that's good. I love Hong Kong. But I was a patent attorney both in-house as well as in a IP firm here in Hong Kong. So I've seen it from both sides. I mostly doing patents, but also, of course, have a lot of experience in other areas of IP as well. But that's me, you know.
But for some reason, like now, the moment we mention AI, we tend to run into the IP discussions.
Sure.
And AI seems to involve in almost a lot of areas of work. So the fact that you have such a diverse like knowledge in all matters concerning patents or intellectual properties, actually very helpful.
Well, I think the first thing that people think about when they talk about AI is the copyright issues, right? Because obviously AI is built on educating the algorithm on stuff from the internet. A lot of that stuff is copyrighted. Some of it is owned. Some of it is open source. Some of it is, subject to various licenses. But you're educating it on this huge, massive information. And so a lot of companies are getting into disputes with content owners about how they can use their data to educate the AI.
The most visible case at this moment is music.
Yes.
Because we had a couple of companies that went onto the news, and I think actually one company had already settled.
Yes, yes. And some of the AI companies have said that they will not use copyrighted content without the owner's permission. But in some countries, you will have certain laws which allow that, regardless of what the company really wants. So that's really interesting. Hong Kong is talking about that, but Taiwan, Japan, other places already started to do that. So Europe, they're very strong against copyright infringement, so they're not going to do something like that. But other countries, they may.
But it's a gray area, right, when it comes to intellectual property sometimes.
Again, well, according to the law, the law depends on each country, each jurisdiction. But sometimes the law is gray, sometimes it's very clear.
But it's not so clear cut. For instance, in the case of music, yes, now that some company decide to settle, and they say that I think there's like one of the side actually, at least from my memory, what they wanted to do is that they're going to work with established artists.
Yes. Yeah.
And if you actually use their music to inspire your music, that particular artist get a cut of
Could be, yeah.
But the people come up with the ideas that they say, what if some of the big corporations decided to patent unpatented harmonious chord, just to preempt it. Let's say I start to own a bunch of sequence because I can just have my computer to I have my computer to search a bunch of unexplored sequence, and I patent all that. Then what if some unfortunate young musicians, on their own initiative, come with exactly the same, combo in the future?
Well, you can't patent the chords; it would be copyrighted, but again, that doesn't stop someone from coming up with it on their own. So if you copyright Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, right? You're Beethoven, you copyright Beethoven's Fifth Symphony.
Yes.
Someone else comes up with almost exactly the same thing, but they never heard of Beethoven, they never heard of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. That's okay.
Let's say
copyright requires copying, and you're not copying, you're independently coming up with it.
But then, let's say I'm Beethoven, Beth. I copyrighted this, right? And then a guy lives in a small island in Polynesia.
Yeah.
And he come up with something like just maybe like 30 seconds of that, that was close to the Fifth Symphony. Is it depends on where I am, like which country I reside in, the right to prove that I'm.
Copyright laws are pretty similar across the world, 99%.
But who has to prove? Like, is it the guy that who come up with the new music that is similar to Beethoven has to prove?
In their situation, you've got Beethoven and a guy on an island.
Yeah.
Who doesn't know Beethoven, never heard of Beethoven.
Yeah.
It's fine. He's fine. Beethoven would try to have to prove that this guy copied it, but he's been on the island, he's never heard of Beethoven, so there's no way Beethoven can prove that he's copied it. I mean, the legal side of it gets very, very complicated in today's world because information flows so freely.
Yeah, because Beethoven can say that, hey, he has internet. He must have heard my music, since...
and that's where the music of derivative work in copyright are very, very complicated right now. You know, you have a lot of lawsuits that are going around the world where one person is accusing another person
Yes.
of copyright, but they can't prove that person actually had access to it. But because they're a musician in the same area, the law assumes that they've heard it before, and therefore it could be subconscious copying and all this other stuff. It's a very complicated area of copyright law that pertains a lot to music. But you also have that same thing in other artworks, right? Painting styles and things like that. So, you know, if you wanted to do a picture of you and me in the style of Van Gogh, you know, and have like Starry Night in the background,
Yeah.
blah, 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 you know, there's a question of, you know, does that infringe and things like that? You know, it depends
But then people can argue, say Van Gogh actually got inspiration from Japanese woodcut.
Could be. And again, that's where the lawyers make all the money, basically, right? So
Yeah.
So I mean, it does get very, very complicated. It depends on country law. It depends on, you know, access. It depends on whether there's actually copy.
So there's a
Because
bright future for patent lawyers.
Well, I don't know. I'm the lawyer who hates lawyers, but you know, there's a lot of things going on. Some of it is being preempted by laws, like I said. In certain countries, in certain geographies, certain jurisdictions, you have new laws coming into effect which allow the use of copyrighted material royalty-free for educating the AI. Right.
So if I'm a young entrepreneurial person who wants to, you know, create things or you know, or I don't know, invent things, like, where do I start? Like, do I just do whatever I want and then, you know, and then research on the IP issues afterwards?
Well,
or is there a place that I should read up my right first and then?
I think you should know your rights. You know, definitely I can't say to someone, go ahead and do whatever you want, right? You need to understand what your risks are. You know, talk to someone who can help you.
Not everyone
understand
know
the
Michael
risks.
Lin, so what can they do?
Well, I don't want everyone calling me either, but, you know,
Yeah.
talk to other people in the industry, see what's common in your industry, right? What's the practice in your industry? Because the people in your industry will know, and you know, they'll know whether this is really riding the line, whether it's crossing the line, or whether it's okay, right? Talk to them.
So most AI association should get Michael Lin.
No. I think you
Like, we start
need
cloning him.
You need to know who to talk to, right? Because there's a lot of people out there who will just spout off and they're trying to drive business to their own legal practice or whatever. But
Because
It's
patent
gotta
law
be
can
very
get very expensive very quickly.
very quickly, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think that, you know, lawyers make things very, very complicated sometimes. But sometimes the answer is, you know, you should really understand what the situation is, what the environment is, because each industry is different, each city is different, each country is different. You know, you have to really worry about the local laws, the local practice, this and that. And like I said, sometimes the local laws are different. And
So
they'll-
talk
they'll
to
have-
someone
they'll-
more experienced in this industry.
well, at least, you know, you need to know what people in that industry are doing, right? Because, again, AI is such a broad field. I can't say, you know, everything is okay or nothing is okay. You know, there's all these gray areas.
So you need to do a little bit of research.
Yeah. But also, like I said, there's so much variation between country to country, you know, that you need to think about what makes sense for you in your situation.
And probably also keep a good log of how you produce and create something.
Oh,
right?
yeah, definitely. You need to really understand the timing, right? When do you start working on something? What evolution does it go through? You know, professors are always worried about copyright infringement because they're afraid of being charged with plagiarism, right? Someone's going to say, oh, well, your thesis looks exactly like this other person's thesis.
Yeah, even if it isn't.
Even if it isn't, or even if you never even saw that person's
Yeah.
thesis and you just arrived at the same conclusion because you're both right or something like that, then you really have an issue, and you have to prove that you didn't copy from them, which is proving a negative, which is extremely difficult, of course.
So it's just good practice if
Yeah.
you keep a good record and
Always
good
good
log,
practice. Always good practice. Yes.
that might be a really good start, right?
Right,
Because you might not have an org or Michael Lin that you can talk
Well,
to.
I mean, like we were talking with Og about the trade
Yeah.
secrets, right? You know, the genesis of every idea or song or artwork is an idea. Maybe you have a couple cool notes, you have a nice little lyric, but you don't know how it fits together yet. So you're not going to copyright it because you only have 10
Yes.
notes.
Yeah.
But you're going to keep on developing it, and eventually it's going to become a song.
Yeah.
Then you copyright the song, right? So the genesis.
or like maybe I have an idea of a story,
Right.
a particular scene,
Right.
and then
And
but,
it's not a full-fledged story yet,
Yeah.
but it's kind of this cool scene, right? And so the beginning of that is this kind of trademark or trade secret, right? You're keeping it secret, you're still developing it, blah blah blah. For a patent, you may have a great technology, but all you have right now is just one really great data point. One scientific point says, "Oh yeah, this when I do this, suddenly I get this weird, crazy result," right? But you don't have the full invention yet. You're still investigating it. All these are trade secrets. So the genesis of all these different IP is a trade secret. And you need to then understand, how do I keep the secret? How do I make sure that I don't disclose it too widely?
like the
so that I can-
Coca-Cola secret formula, that's
the
trade
Coca-Cola
secret.
Yes.
Yeah, that's not patent, but
not
it's in a vault.
In theory,
Yeah.
in Atlanta, Georgia, yeah.
Yeah. So that's a trade secret, right?
Right, right.
I have a question.
Sure.
So, like, I do a lot of things. I do brainstorming with AI now. With how things or how quickly things move, I'm not even bothering with sort of traditional protections, right? So, how do you see sort of that whole practice evolving? Because first of all, it's sort of a mix. When you're using AI to brainstorm with, sure, I'm sort of the impetus, but AI is doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Sure.
I use it to do research. I use it to do
Sure.
brainstorming. It's eliciting questions from me, and then the idea is I feel like it's sort of like a partnership in a way, and how the idea is formed. So, would love to just,
Well, I mean,
know how you think.
depending on what your result is, it could be something that's patentable. It could be something that's, trademarkable, or it could be something that's, copyrightable. It just really depends on what you're doing, right? But in the AI world right now, things are moving so fast,
Yeah.
right? You probably are not going to be going through all these extra steps in the AI world right now, because by the time you get a patent grant, it's going to be 5 years later,
Right.
4 years later. It's
Okay,
going to be gone.
and then the follow-up question would be, like, I'm working with the AI to invent this thing. This thing is giving me very good idea and good suggestions, but also because when I'm giving all this information to AI, in some reason, I am already chucking this idea into the pool.
Could be. Yeah.
What if, like in a freak accident, someone somewhere inventing something similar, my contributions to this big giant pool is pulling the same strand
Could be,
of
yeah.
thoughts and giving it to the other person?
Could be. It's a risk. It's a risk. You don't know. I mean, there's the public and private data, right? Are you doing it behind your own firewall, or are you doing it in the cloud out there where everyone has access to the same, the data that you're pumping in there, right? That's a big question. It hasn't been resolved yet.
What if
It's going to
that?
be a
yeah.
bigger issue over the next few years.
Because, I mean, I understand, like, to say the wheel, it's, just this round thing that, make cars go. But a particular type of tire
Sure.
that I invented alongside with the help of this AI, and then I saw this thing, appearing on the other side of Earth, looking exactly the same, and then that person happens,
Yeah.
it theoretically
It happens all the time. Actually, it happens all the time. I mean,
Yulian, one of the other guys that I hope to get on the podcast, he talked to me. He introduced the concept of social capital. So the idea is, maybe I can't protect the idea, But if I can make sure people know that I was the originator
Yeah.
through some dating, which is what I think GitHub and open source paper platforms like Arxiv are good for. It's sort of like, okay,
Or come up to us and talk about it here so that it's online published before a certain day.
so maybe I can't protect it, but at least I want to be able to prove
You want
should be-
attribution.
Yeah, we want attribution because that's, I think, and I'm being a struggling entrepreneur. I'm sort of getting used to the idea of things like social capital. I don't really need to get paid in dollars. I need to sort of stretch my brain, and I'm sort of getting used
But you want to be recognized as someone who started off this project or this
Exactly.
idea or something like that. Right. And there's a lot of, especially in the software community, there's a lot of that going on. What's the long term? I don't know. Right. But a lot of that's been happening ever since Linux was started 30 years ago. Right.
Yeah.
So it's
works.
there is an ongoing community, but then you have issues like where Mozilla, they were doing that and they're dead, right? I love their browser, but it's
I love that
basically
browser,
dead. Yeah.
and the whole branding was very
Yeah.
cute.
But they didn't have a business model, right?
Yeah.
And so they didn't. Well, they had a business model, it just didn't work. But
Yeah.
then that's why, Microsoft and all these other browsers are way ahead.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Red Hat because Red Hat has a thriving office, huge operations in Hong Kong. They're open source.
Right.
And a lot of enterprise vendors are actually leaving China, or the SaaS ones are leaving China because they're trying to protect something. But Red Hat went the other way, and they have, they have ways to charge with subscription and service and all that. So I feel like
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Tinkerers thing has had a discussion about Red Hat and things like that as well.
yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, it's a different business model, right? Is it sustainable? With the whole thing about OpenClaw installations and then now deletions, and removals, it's a good question.
Yeah.
you know.
OpenClaw, that's another topic.
Yeah.
Tanya, you're going to get in there?
OpenClaw? I don't know yet. I think I'm wondering right now. Am I really finally one last time that I'm actually too slow? But I think over the years I always seems to have good inkling with timing. So I wonder maybe now is the good time to get into OpenClaw.
As people are uninstalled.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, because but yeah, I'm still thinking because I think I need to train some sort of an agent. I think I do because that's
I mean, it's just a question of what access do you want to give it, right? And people who are running it on their main computer, so
Yeah,
again,
in
it
China-
has full root access. Then
I think
that's an issue.
China has a good term, 裸奔, running around naked. And I think I don't mind if people want to run around naked as long as there's no children around. That's their choice. I think in Hong Kong you cannot be charged if you want to run around naked. You're actually charged by creating public disturbance. Yeah, and I think for OpenClaw, I think that's why I need to think about how I want to set it up. Is it on its own, on a standalone thing, and it would, in the beginning, only talk to another standalone thing? So it would have to be a standalone thing for a couple of months until I'm used to, at least from my limited knowledge of this thing is that I am training an agent, right? I'm training a mini-me. And this mini-me needs time to learn how to operate as a mini-me. And this mini-me probably would be just like a children that will go into the terrible 3 and the rebellious teenage years, and then but it needs that time because it probably needs a little bit how to explore the world and flex its muscle. And then I think I can only fully start to get to use this mini-me when it's a little bit more mature have a little bit of gravitas, yeah, then I would allow it to talk to like the other computers that I use. And I wonder like how, because I don't know how powerful this Claw is. If I have a standalone thing and then I have the standalone thing talk to my usual phone, would it figure out very quickly that this is the two same people and then start clawing?
I mean, I think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, you know more about this dog than I do, but
A little bit.
in the big difference between OpenClaw and the other existing agents right now is that OpenClaw's default is that all the permissions are turned on. It's allowed to do everything that you can do on your computer.
Yes.
In the other agents that exist right now and that have existed up until a month ago, you have to specifically allow them and give them permission to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Whereas OpenClaw assumes that it can do everything, and it can't.
Yeah.
So that's the big difference, right?
Yeah.
And it's
That's the Spider-Man thing.
it's also more easily accessible because you can use WhatsApp to tell it what to do and have this conversation with them, right? So you're not even there when it's doing everything because it's doing it on your computer back home or wherever, and so that's where the danger is because you're
I mean, I heard all this weird story of how, like, in the middle of the night, that OpenClaw started the account, and then by in the morning, there's like other agents,
followers.
other believers, and then also apparently there was one that was running a drugstore for other agents. Yeah. So
I want to bring things back to this Michael character that we see all over the place.
No.
Is there
like an OpenClaw.
That's right. Is there a grand plan?
Michael Claw.
Because I know you're doing stuff with some organizations that have been around for a while.
Yeah, I
Is there a
mean,
grand strategy of
I'm very lucky
being all over the place?
in that, given my career and given my current status in life, I can kind of do what I want to do, which is very different from the past 30 years where I did everything I had to do.
So what did you, the past 30 years, was what you were talking about? You were a patent lawyer in all these different places and organizations.
Right.
And what is the new Michael is like?
So the new Michael is spending 65% of my time on my NGOs. I have 5-6 different NGOs.
Are they all AI related?
No, only one's AI related. The other two are health tech, 2 are business, 1 is philanthropy. Hong Kong AI Lab is AI related, but they're all in different areas. And the idea is that starting about 10 years ago, I wanted to, it sounds kind of corny, but I wanted to make the world a little bit better. I think the world's falling to shit. Can I say shit? Sorry.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Okay. It's online.
Okay,
you can even go all the way to the,
I won't go there. Anyway, okay, just checking. But yeah, it's the world is not the safe, nice place that we grew up in. And I think younger generation needs a little bit of help. So I've been trying to work to make the world a better place in what little way that I can. And, through my NGOs, I think we're actually starting to have an effect. One of my NGOs, we're trying to cure certain types of children's cancer. That's cool. And we're in stage 3 trials. That's pretty cool.
Congratulations.
Another one, we're helping to cure a very specific genetic disease that only 30 children in the whole world have. No one's going to spend money on this if we don't do it. We've got 2 business ones that are helping businesses do better, right? Helping the ecosystem for SMEs, for startups. We have been talking with the Hong Kong government, APEC, ASEAN, Thai government, Malaysian government about programs that can help SMEs. Singapore Business Federation ran a 1-day event with us on how can Singapore businesses use trade secrets better, right? But we're also working on IP financing / IP collateralization, whatever you want to call it now. Hong Kong has announced they're doing it, right? So we're working with them. We're having a meeting with the Monetary Authority on Friday to talk about that. We're working on all these projects which are going to help businesses, help SMEs. And we have 40 chapters around the world. And, in 10 years, we've gotten 40 chapters around the world. We're the world's first IP-related NGO to be based in Asia. And we've been recognized by the UN and, WIPO, which is the World Intellectual Property Organization.
Yeah, we should get your WIPO's friends, maybe.
We have WIPO friends,
Yeah.
And so, but we work with organizations all around the world to help SMEs. We're a think tank. We also do a lot of educational activities.
So maybe we should put all Michael's like all his organizations in the description so
Yeah.
people can
We'll
go.
have it all there.
Yeah.
And we like backlinks too.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Lots of links.
Please,
Lots
please
of links.
subscribe. Please comment.
Thank
Please.
you to Oculabs. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you to Oculab, 10th level.
10th floor,
Yeah,
yes.
10 floors, and thank you for like all like they're really giving us a lot of support, and we definitely should throw in the link of Oculab.
Yes, we have it on our footer in the site.
Yeah.
And we'll have it throughout the site.
Yeah.
But if,
Attribution's important.
no, yes,
That's right.
I think if you want to help us, like buy us coffee, or if you want to sponsor space, I think we need space. So like Oculab is great, but I think we'll make it interesting that if we can have more spaces for podcasts. And also, if you want to do events, maybe you say, hey, I want to sponsor like some of those events on like I have a particular stream for cancer support, whatever. Let us know. So comment, subscribe, and share the video.
Tanya can talk about anything. You can talk about anything.
Well, I'm interested in everything.
Yeah.
But I just think that let us know, and also because by the fact that you comment and subscribe, this is at least right now that's the best strategy for
Yeah,
algorithm.
the coffee link doesn't work yet.
Yeah, the coffee link will be working
It
soon.
doesn't work yet.
It doesn't work
We gotta
yet.
figure something out.
Yeah, but we want sponsors, any form of sponsors.
WhatsApp us or something. Email us.
Yeah, we should put an email.
We have one.
Yeah, and if you want more Michael Lin, let us know as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll probably bump into him somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, another thing is Michael. It's like Michael is always the last to leave the party, I think. Yeah. Like if you
Is that
want,
because I'm passed out on the floor drunk?
no.
or-
If you want to party with Michael, like really, like yeah. I mean, it's like one time I went to karaoke
We had a
with
good time in
Michael.
Shanghai, yeah.
Really?
I lost my
that's
voice.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
right,
lost
yeah.
my like.
Which is
I
bad
had,
for an announcer and someone who does
Radio.
interviews.
for radio is like really terrible.
What was that Shanghai event about? What was going on?
That was an IPCC event, and it was basically how can we help countries along the Belt and Road.
Oh, I see.
It was also kind of a very educational thing. We had speakers from all over the place. AI tinkerers were there. We had very good talks, actually. You moderated a panel for us. Thank you very much.
AI and IP
Yep, and ethics. So,
and ethics. Yeah.
and we also had a lot of business people there. Still a bunch of lawyers, but nonetheless, it was still a good event, even though the lawyers. were
You'll
there.
be surprised. Yeah, you'll be surprised that I know. I think it's because of Michael. You're one of a kind.
No. I just try to have some fun while doing something good.
You really are not what people would normally think an IP lawyer is supposed to behave.
yeah.
Yeah, right.
We're usually very dry.
Yeah.
So,
No, this is it. I mean, like that's what makes you very interesting in that sense that you are a very competent lawyer, but at the same time, you know actually how to have fun.
well,
That's right.
I'd like to think so, but I think also that it's people, and especially lawyers, they take themselves way too seriously. Right? I mean, we're all people. We make mistakes. We do something good. We do something bad. Whatever, But people, especially lawyers, they feel they have to try to be perfect all the time, and that's no fun. So
I tried to call you out that one night. We were talking with this guy. This is after OASA. I was shocked that Michael could talk about surfactants. I'm looking at your background now, Michael. I had no idea you were working
spent-
with P&G so long. So,
in fabric and home care, which is all about surfactants.
oh my goodness.
We're talking about flying drones to spray surfactants on
we
buildings.
can get Dylan on the podcast too. He's
Yeah.
a low
You already mentioned Dylan a few times, so
Yes.
Dylan's on my list. But just now you bring up a name that I do not know at the beginning of the video.
OASA?
Not Oasa, another person.
Oh, Ronaldo.
Not
Ray
Ronaldo.
Spinelli?
No, I'm going to look at the video again.
Julian.
Julian.
Yes, we're trying to get him.
Yeah.
He wants to see some episodes first.
I'm already like that's one strike at Julian. Yeah. No. So no.
Social capital. That's what
Yeah. No. Back to like this is my vent. So one night I was in my pajamas. I got a text from Og saying I'm drinking with Michael, but I'm leaving soon. Do you want to come out now? What is
Take
the guy?
over. I gotta pass the baton to someone.
I was like, man, this is not good. Like, you know, like I know if I come out that night, I probably the next thing I know would be 3 a.m. I'm still holding a drink.
It was very chill. It was very.
It was very chill. We didn't have that much.
No. And you were talking. There was another group of guys there you were talking to. I was talking to Dylan a lot, and then I learned some stuff because you were there, and then you went to the other side of the table. And
Oh yeah, we're talking about how to cure cancer. So
I see. That's why yeah.
yeah.
So
And
you're
they're
talking
very
about
involved.
this surfactant, surfactant, and then cancer curing.
Yeah.
That's
That's what we do.
That's your range, right? Like
Something like that.
like we can draw this thing that is like with two axes that then you can do any of those things. Right?
Well, I know a little bit about a lot of stuff. I mean, as a patent attorney, I was always working on new technologies and did everything. And so I know a little bit about this. I know a little bit about that, but I know how they fit together. Right?
And what do you guys do at AI Lab?
AI Labs, we help to mentor AI companies. So they have, 2 cohorts a year. I think each one is probably 60 or 70 companies. And we try to push them through the process, help them understand, help them to get moving, but also make connections with them to investors and things like that. Sometimes people call me up and just ask me random questions. There's a couple legal tech guys that keep on asking me questions, helping them with their business model, but also how do they get the data to educate their AI, because law firms don't want to give them the data, right? It's really hard to get the data to educate.
Data.
Yeah. And, but can you trust that? Lawyers pretty much need things to be correct all the time.
Yeah.
Right? There's liability issues. And so how do you get the right data that's high quality enough that you can educate your AI and then use that to give advice? It's really tough. So these AI startups, especially in legal tech, they're struggling.
I have some ideas.
Yeah. So I mean, AI is all about the data and the algorithm, and then how do they interact? And then once you've educated the algorithm, then what do you do with the next step, right? And so if you're educating the AI on all that's out there on the internet, maybe 20, 30, 40, 50% of it is true, depending on your area.
And also, there's right now I heard of like there are people who like the AI data like online, the public ones get polluted by people who are exploring with the loophole of training the agents to actually buff up certain keywords.
Sure. Of
So,
course. There's always people who are going to try to game the system.
So it gets like at one point, if the worst case scenario might be that you just happens to type in something bad words, and then that's hit a certain stream that like maybe 10 years ago, some already outdated company have churn out this bunch of things that going,
Sure.
and they're going to start talking about, I don't know, tissue papers,
Yeah, I mean, that's basically SEO, right? That's just gaming SEO.
Yeah.
And so people are going to educate their AI on all this publicly available information. And then they're going to take it in-house, behind their own firewall, and then educate it on their own in-house information, right? But they need to figure out how to weight that information. Obviously, the stuff that's publicly available, maybe only 20% of it is true. But the in-house information, hopefully, is 100% or 85% true. So how do you weight?
But wouldn't that be at one point wouldn't that be the people that will have the most resources, like big corporations, will be the one that will actually have a much better quality in-house AI model?
You would think so, but also there's two big different strategies I see And it's kind of an Eastern-Western type of thing. So in the West right now, you have all these general LLMs, right? They're going to try to be good at everything, right? My understanding of what's going on in China is that everything is very, very specific. You have a bunch of agents, not as many LLMs, but more focused on agents for this, agents for that, agents for that. So,
Very interesting.
yeah, so it's a strategic difference between the East and West right now. Now, the US and Europe are starting to do more agents now, but China's been doing agents for, what, 2 years, right?
Yeah.
So they're playing catch up. But then China, people would think they're trying to play catch up on the LLMs. You know, you've got DeepSeek and things like that. But my understanding is they're not even doing that. They're just focusing on the agents because they want to do this really, really well.
Because like the worst case scenario of LLM, it's like the public one. To me, it's like many years ago, I went to Namibia, and Namibia, you know, is one of the driest places on earth, and in the desert, and the guy just like tell us, like, he take out a plate and they put a little bit of water into that plate, and to be able to survive in the desert, like all these birds, they have, like, I don't know, radar sensors. Like the moment they see a plate of water, fresh waters, they start to flood. Like a few birds come up by. In the beginning, they're a bit afraid, and then once they like
Drink
2,
it,
3,
yeah.
they start drinking it. Those are real water, not poison. Like you just see so many birds flooding by,
Wow.
and then someone start to abuse the system. The first bird jumping into the plate and have a bath, and then in the beginning, there's some people policing the bird. Like one bird going, "Hey, you're not supposed to go in and have a shower. This is drinking water." But sooner or
Interesting.
later, the water becomes so polluted. All the birds are going in and have a big bath. And
No one's drinking anymore.
within a couple of minutes, that water is so polluted. And to me, that would be the worst case scenario with the public model. That if all this SEO is starting to pollute this data, it will get to a point that it's not usable.
Well, yeah, and then at that point, people are just going to rely on private data.
Yeah,
Or
and
they're
whoever
gonna- or
have the
they're gonna-
resources.
Exactly. Or what they're going to have to do is try to weed out the bad data. But how do you do that? It's all ones and zeros. To an AI algorithm, it all looks the same.
Yeah.
So that's the question. And
How do you make that pool of water clean again?
or how do you distinguish the bad pools versus the good pools is probably the better way. Because there's always going to be good data out there. It's just going to be maybe a smaller and smaller proportion. I don't know. But you're going to have certain sources that are trusted, like RTHK, and you're going to have certain sources that no one's going to trust because they know it's complete crap or something. So that's where, I mean, and all the news stations are all struggling with that, right? They've been struggling with that for years because a lot of it is free now. How do you get people to pay? And usually it's they'll pay for reliable information.
Yeah, I think the first group of people that, I mean, if you guys know, like my family background is in newspaper. So I think the first news organization, the first clusters that got hit was newspapers.
Yeah.
And then I think afterwards it's like TV and radio and so on. But I think I'm more hopeful. I think that people did not see the value of curated collections of news or entertainment even. But I think we are at that point that at least I see the value.
Well, I think also for AI specifically, you're coming to the end of the days where people want to bother educating their AI on just everything out there. Then people don't want to because it's a waste of time and energy, right? And so what they're going to do and what you're going to see more and more of, it's already started last year, but you're going to see more and more people paying for quality data.
Exactly.
And because this outlet or this source has really good, reliable data, it's gonna be worth for them to pay for it, and then
I think for the
I-
I think like it's always like this, right? The professional sees it maybe 10, 15 years ahead of everyone else. But I think even the public nowadays begins to caught on just the beginning, to catch on the idea that I think last time we talked about taste, right? And I think taste is in everything now. That it's just it like news is the same, right? I mean, like okay, there's some news that you do want to read, and then there are others that nowadays you come across online. This is a complete waste of time, bad reporting, not informative,
Not entertaining.
yeah. And it's the same with everything else, like art, with films, like the curations become important. Like for instance, the Criterion collections. That's a nice collection of film.
I've been going back and forth around this concept. So taste, on the outside, it might sound like gatekeeping. Like, oh, you have shitty taste. You're not as good as me. But the way I'm starting to understand it now is that taste, it ties into what I think how we used to train people, which is through apprenticeships, right? So,
Yes.
So a lot of times you can't really use words or a syllabus or textbook to explain how or why something should work. You need to be with someone. You need to experience it with someone. And so maybe that's how education, I think we need to go back to sort of basics of education in a way, right? Like that style, which is very expensive to do, but maybe with AI, you could sort of make it more broadly accessible. But that concept of an apprenticeship,
Yes.
one-on-one, and just experiencing, like, I don't need to use words to explain what's going on. Just see it with me and watch how I do it.
And I think with I think say 30 years ago, apprenticeships sounds almost like a dirty word. Like it's almost like, oh, this is all and this is not exact, and also how would you like, and normally when people tend to start really early, right, and go, oh, I want a college education. Why would I want to become an apprentice of someone?
And Jeremy was telling me this, like how the juniors would learn at a law firm. Like they need to shadow someone. You can't really read the laws to learn law. You really need to.
Well, there's the law, which is the black letter law they call it, which is the laws and how they've been interpreted, right? But even in the interpretation, there's many gray areas, right? But then what you can't learn from books is the practice of law, right? And sometimes it's how do you talk to a client, right? You could just say, here's what I'm going to do, here's how much I'm going to charge, pay me. It'll be 15 pages. Okay, right? But very few clients are going to pay for that.
Yes.
Or they'll say yes, and then they'll argue with the price later on, right? But if you tell them in a nice way, here's why I need to do this. Here's why it's going to help you and protect you from the downside of this deal or whatever. Then they understand why you need to do it, why it actually costs that much. Because you got to actually spend 30 hours doing it or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Then, you're not going to have that argument about the cost later on, right? Or the output or the whatever, right? And so understanding the business of law, the practice of law is very, very important. And that is what you go through when you're just shadowing a lawyer or a couple of lawyers, And what I always told my trainees was that, do as many projects as you can with all the different partners, right? Figure out what this person does that you like, what this person does that you like, and then pick and choose the best parts of all their practices and their ways of dealing with clients and things like that, and then make it your own, right? Because what works for me may not work for you, may not work for you. You may hate the way I approach clients, fine. But now you know that you don't want to do it that way, right? And then, oh, this person, I love the way that they talk with their clients or the way they approach things, fine, right? But you need to have that experience of all these different viewpoints and then figure out what works for you in your long-term
Yeah,
practice.
that's the cultivation of taste, maybe.
Well,
You see all these different approaches.
it's learning how to use your own judgment,
Yeah.
right? Because again, I may not like what this person does, but I see it's effective, right? I just don't want to do it that way. I just don't like it, right? It just rubs me the wrong way, or I know I'm not going to be successful doing that.
And also, different area of law sometimes seems to require a different approach.
Sure, of course, of course. Some are very adversarial, right? If you're in the court, in the common law system, you're adversaries, and you fight it out in court to see who wins, right?
Yeah. And especially, like, for instance, like with marital law, some parties just really want the other person to die.
Yeah, they just want to. Yeah, I mean, and that's usually very, very emotional. Right?
Yeah, and you
Yeah,
like,
of course.
when you're in that type of mood, you want to hire someone that who can scratch his eyes out for
Right,
you on
right,
your behalf.
Right, right. But
Not that that's the best approach.
no, but in some cases that's the right thing to do because you're in that adversarial process. In other cases, it's not very adversarial. I mean, when I'm with my inventors, right, I'm helping them to define and create the invention that they've been working on for 20 years and finally solve the problem, right? That's why I love being a patent attorney because everyone I meet, they're all happy. They're like, oh, I've been working on this forever and I finally solved it. Help me, right? I want to build a business with this, so let's do that. And so they're very excited to talk to me, right? Sometimes a bit too excited, but you got to calm them down a little bit. But that's great, patent attorneys are very lucky because it's typically not an adversarial type of thing. Court attorneys, solicitors, barristers, right? Especially barristers, they're very, very adversarial, right? And when I was young, I thought I wanted to be a barrister. Well, in the U.S., a court attorney, but then I thought, you know what? It's not right for me. I don't want to be coming back that hyped up every single day from work. And so I love what I do. I did it for 30 years. I had a great time. Great inventors, great people to work with, because they're always happy when you see them, right? As opposed to,
And they tend to have a bit of passion as well, right? You have to be passionate about the subject matter to be able to work on something for 30 years.
Yeah, a lot of these people, they're PhDs or professors or whatever, and they have been working on this one problem for 20 years, 30 years, and they finally just solved it. I mean, they're bouncing off the walls. They're so excited. It's great.
So this is the reason why we see you everywhere.
I like to meet interesting people and have some interesting conversations about surfactants and drones cleaning 30, 40-story buildings with hoses.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah. Well, solution.
There's IP in his mix, isn't it?
Yes, there is. There is. I told him to keep it a trade secret.
Just trade secret. Yeah, okay, just trade secret. 'Cause
Keep it as trade secret for now, or keep it as trade secret forever?
He's still tweaking it, right? Because you can't have too much suds, but you have to have some suds. And then how do you pump something with suds up that high, right? There's a lot of logistical and physical things he needs to work with.
So there's a lot of tinkering involved when you invent something, like keep it as trade secret, actually not to patent it, or when to patent it.
Yes, and I think there's a lot of business reasons why you may not want to even patent something, right?
For instance, like Coca-Cola, that they don't want to leak their secret formula.
Because if you patent something, it's all disclosed. 18 months later, everything becomes public. So if you have a formula, like a drink formula or a fragrance, I was talking with someone about fragrances last night, you don't want to do patents on that because then everyone will be able to replicate it. But right now, Givaudan, IFF, Chanel No. 5. There's a lot of things that are similar to it. The nose seems like it's the same, but you can tell that actually, Chanel No. 5 lasts 8 hours. This only lasts 2 hours. Or certain types of skin, it doesn't smell good on their skin. Chanel No. 5 smells good on all these other types of skin. right? There's a lot of skin chemistry that's.
But even Chanel number 5, actually, I mean, at least from a consumer point of view, Chanel number 5 spelled different, very different now.
Yeah.
Like
And
yeah,
before.
yes, according to my late mother, who was like I think she wore she wore number 5 since like I don't know since her teenage years.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Because I like I think
But
in
Chanel
today's
number
smell difference.
5 and most fragrances, they react with your skin, and your skin chemistry changes as you age.
That could be, but
So it
I
could
really
be-
think, that the like in perfumed world,
Yeah, it could be.
the certain ingredients are
could be.
very hard to come by
Yeah.
these days.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
I think they have to
I mean,
tweak
they're not
it.
putting ambergris in there. I mean,
Yeah, and then some of them might be illegal now,
Right,
you know,
yeah.
because so I think it's
So yeah, so I mean, but things like that. But the label's still the same. You know, and
a lot of things actually it's different. The human fact is different. Like for instance, singing bowl, you would say that hey, it's a bowl. It makes the same sound. Yeah, but whoever is holding it, the sound of a singing bowl. If you know, like if you're doing sound healing, the sound of the singing bowl really it's a combo between the bowl and the person who is holding the bowl. I'm not even talking about spiritual stuff. I'm just talking about like your hand, the size of your hand, whether like maybe the fat content of your palm.
yeah, how hard it is.
Yeah.
And, how
So
soft
so
it is,
and then react to the room. Yeah. And so it's you can't really patent that, right? Can you?
in theory, but yeah, it'd be really tough. So yeah, but again,
I need that palm size to be this size.
Yeah, but the point is, you wouldn't want to, right? Because that would limit your business.
yeah.
You know, you actually don't want to patent it because you will have better chance to have a long-term business because someone they won't be able to just read a document and say, oh yeah, I can do that, right? They're going to have to actually try with all these different bowls, all these different thicknesses, all these different materials, and it may take them 15 years of research to finally get something that's similar, right? So that's your competitive advantage for 15 years because you know someone's not going to be able to replicate you for so long. And even if they do, who's to say it's really the same, right? I mean, you look on the internet right now, there's a million formulas for Coca-Cola. And
Yes.
maybe some of them are correct. Maybe they are. You don't know. But are you going to spend all your time trying to make these and find the one that's the closest to Coca-Cola? Or are you just going to go buy Coca-Cola? Right? Right.
Yeah.
And that's part of it, right? You don't, like, the whole thing about trade secrets is you can leverage ambiguity to increase your competitive advantage, which is something that a lot of people don't understand.
But actually, all this mention of Coca-Cola, I'm actually a Pepsi person.
Hey, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I would get Pepsi in the.
I was a Coca-Cola Diet Coke lemon person, but now I'm more a Pepsi. The Nami, the Japanese Nami, Pepsi. You know,
I just felt like Pepsi
Pepsi-
had a better cola. As counterintuitive as that sounds, I felt it had a better cola flavor, like a deeper.
but have you tried Karma Cola?
No,
So, yeah,
what is that?
it's just very hard to come by.
It's a
Otherwise,
very local cola.
Okay, are we going to try to find it for lunch today?
we can find it in Central.
I've never seen it in Hong Kong.
It's sold in that shop. Like there's one shop that in Hong Kong I know for sure that stock Karma Cola.
Okay.
Because do you know Coke is actually there's a coca beans. Yeah, you see.
No, I didn't know that. I thought it was just Coke, like cocaine.
No, there's three.
Well, there used to be cocaine in it.
No, there's
100
three
years
things
ago.
in this world that I didn't know. I only knew the synthetic version before I actually see the real thing. Strawberries, because in Hong Kong when I was little, there was not a lot of fresh strawberries. And I only know the Japanese eraser strawberry flavors and also like ice creams. So when I met the real strawberries, it was too sours. Vanilla. I think a lot of people didn't even know vanilla is actually made from vanilla pods. I had a restaurateur. He told me that they have client complain that there are black dots in their ice creams, and they thought that it was, that was real
Contamination or something,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was real vanilla beans
Yeah,
pot,
yeah.
and then they
Vanilla.
and they complain. They
It's
go,
like shaved.
oh, that's how bad things are. And then coca beans. So this cola beans is grown in Africa, and so originally Coca-Cola is actually an elixir, like some pharmacists make.
Yep.
That they make with this cola bean, they made it with a little bit of cocaine, and then so this elixir is to revive you, and it becomes this drink, and so Karma Cola is actually made with cola beans. You'll have to, we have to. Karma Cola, if you want to sponsor us, that's okay.
For sponsors.
We're very happy that Alki Lab 10th level
Yes.
is sponsoring us with space. And we're definitely actively looking for space sponsors to do our podcast. And also, I think it should be a live event at some point.
Yeah, we would
Yeah.
love it. With any
So-
co-working
so,
spaces.
yeah,
that
we're
want some
looking-
lively
Definitely.
entertainment.
And if you are a co-working space, you want to work with us, we're very happy. We have a lot of plans. And if you just enjoy watching this, tell us what you want us to talk about. Tell us if you want more Michael Lin.
Yeah.
And subscribe, comment, and share the video.
Well, even if they don't, they're gonna bump into him. They're gonna run into him.
That's it. That's true. Yeah. And so yes, like share the videos. I
And
think
what was Michael's organization again? It was
AI Labs.
Hong Kong AI Lab.
Okay.
There's IIPCC, which is International IP Commercialization Council. I'm also on the council for LES, Licensing Executive Society here in Hong Kong. There is a philanthropy called the Wang Foundation, which helps,
Cancers.
it helps AI companies mostly. There's also the Raiden Science Foundation, where we're trying to cure a very ultra-rare genetic disease. That's the one where only 30 children in the world have it. And I'm also a board member for the Children's Cancer Therapy Development Institute, CCTDI, which is trying to cure certain types of children's cancer. So lots of busy stuff.
Okay.
And then 20% of my time I work on my companies. So my consulting company and a tech licensing company. So
And then now a small percent of time that you're going to come here and talk to us.
I could do that too.